And we live, baby. What's good, YouTube? Welcome to my channel if you're new here, and welcome back if you are already a part of the squad. Today, I'm gonna be going over semiconductors, the current state of the semiconductor industry, and why, given the current state, why I'm choosing to invest in semiconductors. And so here goes. Before I can talk about the semiconductor industry, I think it would make sense for me to explain exactly what a semiconductor is. Um, and so to do that, I need to start with what a conductor is. You may or may not know this already, but conductors are materials that conduct electricity well. So some examples of conductors, of materials that are good conductors, is copper, aluminum, uh, gold. There's a few metals that are good conductors, and then on top of that, uh, um, I can't think of any non-metals that are good conductors, but there goes some examples of conductor. Now, an insulator is a material that doesn't conduct electricity well. And so what are some examples of that? Rubber is an example of an insulator. Glass is an example of an insulator, so on and so forth. Now, that brings me to semiconductors. What is a semiconductor? A semiconductor is a material that doesn't conduct electricity under certain conditions, but if those conditions are changed, then it does conduct electricity. And so what do I mean by, if those conditions are changed? Well, one example would be heating up the material. That's the one that comes to mind off the top of my head. Some materials are terrible for conducting electricity unless you heat those materials up. And then after you heat those materials up, they conduct electricity really well. And those materials are known as semiconductors. Now, how you doing, Mason? Glad you could stop by. Now, why are semiconductors important? Well, computers, as we know them, computers don't understand language. Computers only understand on and off, the flow of electricity versus the non-flow of electricity. And they translate that to zeros and ones. And from these zeros and ones, the complexity that you see within computers today, that complexity is established. So the logic behind computers, the entire foundation on computers lie on semiconductors. Now, not just computers, though. I mean, any sophisticated piece of technology that does any type of computation or logic. What's good, Javon? Appreciate you for stopping by, my guy. Um, any, or was I saying, any computational device or any type of electronic device that goes from an on state to an off state, that does any type of calculations or computations, that performs any type of logic. The technology behind that is semiconductors. And so we got all these smart cars left and right. We got computers left and right. We got video games left and right. We got smart TVs left and right. We got toys. We've developed a society that pretty much depends on semiconductors. And so semiconductors have become a staple in our economy. If we woke up tomorrow and no more semiconductors were being produced, then no more MacBooks, no more Apple phones, no more Samsung, no more any of these electronic amenities that we enjoy today. They would be gone. I mean, we wouldn't be able to make anymore. So semiconductors are a very valuable commodity on which our society currently depends on. It's a pretty big foundation. And so I don't see the semiconductor industry going anywhere anytime soon. I think the semiconductor industry is going to be here for a long time. Now, what are some companies that manufacture these semiconductors? Well, I'm about to tell you in a second, but I think now is a good time to remind y'all to hit that like button. If you're not subscribed, go ahead and subscribe to my shit. Your boy trying to grow his channel. I'm trying to get this information to the masses. And so if you ain't subscribed yet, if you ain't liked this video yet, go ahead and hit that like button. I appreciate y'all. Now, some semiconductor companies, some companies that manufacture semiconductors are TSMC. One second. Um, my mistake. So some companies that manufacture semiconductors are TSMC. That's one example of a company. What else? Nvidia. What else? Xilinx. And then the most popular one, the one that I'm pretty sure that most of you have heard of, is Intel. Intel, those core processors, those Intel processors that you see on your laptops and stuff like that. You go and get your HP, and it says comes with the Intel i9 core processor. That Intel is the semiconductor. Is the semiconductor company. And as of now, semiconductor that Intel is the as of now, Intel is the largest semiconductor producer by revenue. Mason asks, is this stuff that I studied in college? No, in college I studied mathematics, and then I went on to get a master's in bioinformatics. Bioinformatics is an interdisciplinary study in which we study mathematics, computer science, and biology. So computer science, I was kind of introduced to it in college, in my graduate level college, and from there I left college and pretty much just do a lot of independent research and study. And so that's why I know. That's how I know what I know. But semiconductor. Long story short, I think that's all a backstory that you need to know. I don't want to go into too much detail, because I'm not an electrical or computer engineer. That's not my background. So the more detail I go into, the greater the risk of me giving you all some misinformation. So I don't want to go into any more detail for that reason, but also B, that's about the extent that you need to know in order to understand semiconductors as they relate in our present day economy. Um, I'm not trying to be an expert on semiconductors. What I'm doing is the research that I need in order to be a successful investor in the semiconductor community. I mean, industry. And so I'll leave it at that. But so with all that being said, semiconductors, chances are, unless some brand new, out of nowhere, disruptive technology comes about that completely wipes out semiconductors, which I don't foresee happening anytime soon, I could be wrong. And if I am wrong, I will give you all an update and let you all know. But unless some brand new technology comes through and wipes out the semiconductor, the use and usability of semiconductors, um, I don't believe the semiconductor industry is going anywhere anytime soon. With that being said, though, there is a global shortage in semiconductors. There is a global shortage. That means that no company, no matter how big and how many semiconductors they're selling, none of them are selling enough to meet the demand by these tech companies. Right now, Apple is in need of semiconductors. Sony, the reason PlayStation 5s are so difficult to get right now is largely due to the semiconductor shortage. There's no semiconductors and GPUs being sold, and so PlayStation 5s can't be made. And so until that shortage is addressed, until the global semiconductor shortage is addressed, we gonna keep seeing these overpriced ass PlayStation 5s. But I digress from the PlayStation 5 rant that I was getting ready to go on. Back to the semiconductor industry. All of these companies, a lot of these tech companies, if not a lot, then all of them, these tech companies, they depend on semiconductor technology, and thus they depend on semiconductor manufacturers. So Intel, Nvidia, TSMC, AMD, all of these semiconductor manufacturing companies, they won't be going out of business anytime soon. In fact, not only will they not be going out of business anytime soon, they're going to continue to sell out. They're going to make these semiconductors as they've been doing, and they're going to sell out because there is a global shortage in semiconductors. Now, all of this information being said, you would think that these semiconductor companies, um, you would think that the stock in these semiconductor companies will be going through the roof. And that's what I expected, but it's actually not been the case. If you look back on, if you look at, I think out of the 5 semiconductor manufacturing companies that I named, 4 of them over the past year um, are down at least by some percent, by some margin. They're down, not by some ridiculous stupid amount, but a lot of the stock prices are down. Now, why is that the case? My theory is that these semiconductor companies, well, I know this to be the truth. So this is a fact, not my theory. This next statement that I'm about to say is a fact, especially with Intel. They announced that they will not be doing any more stock buybacks. They won't be doing any stock buybacks for a while. Now, what does that mean? Stock buybacks raise the price of the stock. And so I believe that my theory, this is the theory. My theory, okay, before I give y'all my theory, let me go back to fact. Intel, they won't be doing any more stock buybacks. And instead of taking the money that they will be purchasing stocks with, they are going to build new manufacturing plants. And these manufacturing plants are going to be built so that they can meet the demand of the semiconductor of the industries that are demanding semiconductors. And so people heard that and they said, "Oh, they not doing no more stock buybacks. That means the stock price gonna drop, or at least it's not gonna go up. I'm taking my money out." And I believe a lot of short-term investors, short-term and mid-term investors, opted to take their money out right then and there. The minute that I believe his name is Pat Gensler or Gelsingler or something like that. Pat G, whatever is however you pronounce his last name. Pat G, the CEO of Intel, announced that they wouldn't be doing stock buybacks for a while because they prioritize and building new manufacturing plants so that they can meet the demand, so that they can stay in business, so that they can advance the um, advance their company. Um, People heard that the day of that stockholders call, the day of that earnings call. I was on that call. The day of that call, I saw the price begin to plummet for real, like a lot. And I believe it plummeted because people heard that no more stock buybacks were going to happen for a while, and that they were going to be taking the money that they make and investing in their company so that they can build, meet the demand. Like I said, um, that doesn't scare me off as an investor. That's not something that scares me off at all. That's good news. A company that's saying, "Hey, we're going to practice financial responsibility for the betterment of our company." That's essentially what I heard. Now, I could be wrong. There could be some factor that I'm not considering, but I don't think so. I'm pretty thorough in my search before I decide to invest, and I'm even more thorough before I, disseminate that information and start, sharing with other people what I invested in, because I don't want to send nobody off. I'm okay with losing my own money, but when I lose, if 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 somebody else was to lose money on account of some information that they got from me, I would rather avoid that. Now's a good time to mention that I am not a financial advisor. Do your own research and make sure that you come to your own conclusions. But I checked their financial statements. I checked the financial statements of Intel, AMD, TSMC, and Nvidia. Those are 4 semiconductor manufacturing companies. I checked the financial statements of all 4 of those companies, and all of the financial statements are pretty impressive. They have low debt. I think all of them, if not most of them, if not at least 3 of the 4, all of them make more just in operating income. Their yearly operating incomes surpass the total amount of debt that they have on the books. That's great. That's good news. That's what I like to see in a financially responsible company. In all of them, I've also seen growth in revenue over the last 4 years. That's great. I've also seen growth in operating income over the last 4 years. That's great. I've also seen good management of debt. I've seen a regular practice of stock buybacks, which I like to see as a stockholder. So checking their balance sheet, their income statement, and the cash flow statements of all 4 of these semiconductor companies, They really nice. I really don't see any reason why, why people would pull out of Intel in particular, other than that's the only factor that I can think of. And I know that the masses are pretty erratic when it comes to investing. If the president sneezes, the economy might, take a downturn just because, the president might be sick or some shit like that. So, the public is pretty irrational. I think that that is no more evident than right now because there is no reason to not invest. There is no reason to be divesting in the semiconductor industry. I don't see any reason, at least. Um, Another good factor that I like that played into why I'm deciding to invest in the semiconductor industry is um, they have government. TSMC is based in Taiwan. The government of Taiwan is actively supporting TSMC so that they can meet the semiconductor um, demand. The same with Intel. President Joe Biden has already, if he hasn't met with of Intel yet, I believe he's scheduled a meeting. But infrastructure and within infrastructure, addressing the shortage in semiconductors, those are all um, publicly stated high priority tasks on President Joe Biden's agenda, which is good for Intel. That means Intel is going to be able to do a lot more growth. They're going to get a lot more corporate leniency from the government of the United States, which is going to enable them to grow a lot more. And so I really don't see any reason why people would be divesting in Intel other than the CEO coming out and letting the stockholders know, hey, all right, it ain't shake that ass time no more. We not doing this we're not going crazy on the stock buybacks for the time being. Instead, we're gonna take this money and use this money to invest and we're gonna take this money and use it to invest in expanding so that we get a greater market share. So from what I can tell, Intel, they definitely do got a large task ahead of them because building these fabrication plants to manufacture these semiconductors is super expensive. There's only a few companies that provide the equipment that they need in order to manufacture these semiconductors. So their supply chain is pretty sensitive to disruptions. It's pretty susceptible to disruptions, and that's just not Intel. That's any semiconductor company. The manufacturing of semiconductors is pretty difficult. It's not something that a startup company will be able to just hop in. Javon says, show us your stocks, and you should look at Open Insider tells you what CEOs and other business people sells and buy, so you can copy. That's a good idea. That's how I invested at first. I used to, look up Ray Dalio and Warren Buffett's. When I was a beginner, I looked up their investments and I checked out, what companies they chose to, and I looked through those companies to find similarity. And I often do that. I'll check the portfolio of some successful investors, and I'll see what's on their portfolio. Definitely a good idea, especially for beginning investors. But that's pretty much all I have to say on the semiconductor industry. I mean, I told you all what I like. I like that they have government support generally, globally. Like the one based in Taiwan has their government support. The one based in our government support. Like people need. It's not that we want the semiconductor industry to succeed. We pretty much need it to. I mean, we in a technologically advanced world, and for it to stay that way, we need semiconductors. And so that's one thing I like. Just to give a quick summary. Another thing I like are the numbers when I look at when I do a financial analysis on these semiconductor industries. Really low debt, growing revenue, growing free cash flow, growing growing operating income, and really low debt, which I already said, but I'm gonna say it again because that's a big priority. These companies maintain low debt, um, really good revenue, and it's a staple in our in our society. It's something that we need. It's something, they have a business model that isn't gonna be um, challenged by any leading tech, any groundbreaking or disruptive technology, at least not anytime soon. So those are three reasons right there. The risk, the risks are they have a very delicate supply chain, and it's pretty difficult. It's pretty difficult to to resolve issues when they do come along these supply chains. But again, they have government support. So when they do have supply chain issues, they go and they go and report to their president or their government, and they make these issues known. And the government actively helps them because again, we need these semiconductors to continue to be produced. Um, so that's the information that I have. Take that and do what you will with it. Before you purchase any stock in any publicly traded semiconductor manufacturing company, be sure to do all of your own research. Be sure to verify and double check everything that I just said. I am not a financial advisor. I'm just somebody who invests, and um, I do so with every intention on being as thorough as possible. So that's all I have. If anybody have any questions, if anybody would like for me to do a video on how I do a financial analysis of a company, let me know, and I'll do a video. I'll give you an example, and I'll use Intel as the example, just to show y'all, all the things about the financial statement that I like that attracted me to it. But yeah, for y'all watching who take interest in the gaming aspect of my channel, I'm getting a new gaming camera. It should be arriving tomorrow, and I'll definitely be going live first chance I get. So I'll get up with y'all next time. Peace. Stay safe.